Hello everyone, and welcome. Now, I know that many of you are going to find yourselves in a boardroom someday. You'll be looking at a presentation, and a simple positive growth number will be up on the screen. And for many in that room, that's where the analysis stops. But not for you. Today's lecture is all about giving you the tools to see the real story behind the numbers. We're going to move past the simple stuff and into the really sophisticated world of calculus to understand the true dynamics of business momentum. And trust me, this is a skill that will absolutely set you apart. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by talking about why just looking at simple growth is a bit like trying to drive a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. Then we'll get to the main event, our powerful new tool, the second derivative, and this crucial idea of concavity. After that, we'll build a clear, step-by-step method to uncover the hidden story in your data. Then we'll put it all to the test in a high-stakes boardroom simulation. And finally, we are going to spend some very important time on the common pitfalls that can trip up even experienced analysts.
Okay, let's dive right in. Look, every business on the planet obsesses over growth. It's the engine of everything, but how you measure and, more importantly, interpret that growth, well, that's what separates a truly insightful strategist from just another manager. And we are here to make you insightful.
So let's start with this really fundamental question. You get the quarterly report. Revenue is up. That's great news, right? I mean, of course it is. But is it the complete picture? A truly sophisticated business mind knows that the top-line number is just the first page of the story. It's not the end. The real question is, what is that number really telling you about what's coming next?
Now, as we've already covered, we know that the first derivative of a function, let's say a revenue function over time, R of t, gives us the instantaneous rate of change. You can think of it as your company's velocity. It answers the question, how fast are our sales growing right this second? It's a snapshot in time. But velocity, by itself, doesn't tell you if you're speeding up or if you're hitting the brakes. And for that, we need to understand momentum.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of today's lecture. We're going to add a new, incredibly powerful tool to our analytical toolkit. It's the one that lets us measure that very momentum we were just talking about, the second derivative. So what is it formally? Well, the second derivative is literally the derivative of the first derivative. So if the first derivative is your velocity, then the second derivative is your acceleration. It's like pressing the gas pedal or tapping the brake in your car. It answers that absolutely critical question, is our rate of growth itself getting faster or is it getting slower? And when we look at this on a graph, this whole concept of acceleration is shown through the shape of the curve, which we call its concavity.
Now this right here is where abstract math becomes a real business insight. When your second derivative is positive, we say the curve is concave up. And the visual metaphor is perfect. It's shaped like a cup holding water. This means your growth is accelerating. Every dollar you spend on marketing is bringing in even more revenue than the last dollar did. This is the dream scenario of increasing returns. On the flip side, when the second derivative is negative, the curve is concave down, like a frown. Your growth is decelerating. This represents the law of diminishing returns kicking in. You're still growing, which is good, but the engine is losing some of its power. You might be getting close to saturating your market.
So now that we have this tool, we can start to uncover that hidden narrative that's buried inside our financial data. But to do it right and to do it consistently, we need a clear, repeatable process.
Here is your 4-step recipe for success. First, you define your function. Let's use a simple revenue function. Say R of t equals negative t cubed plus 12t squared. Step 2, we find the first derivative to get our velocity. R prime of t is negative 3t squared plus 24t. This tells us how fast revenue is changing at any given time. Step 3, we calculate the second derivative to find our acceleration. R double prime of t is negative 6t plus 24. And finally, the most important step, analyze the sign. With a little algebra, we can see that when t is less than 4, that second derivative is positive. Our growth is accelerating. But the moment t becomes greater than 4, it flips to negative. We start decelerating. That exact point, t equals 4, is what we call an inflection point. It's critical.
And this brings us to what might be the single most critical distinction I want you to walk away with today. A negative second derivative does not mean you have negative growth. It means your positive growth is decelerating. Think about it like this. You're on the highway, and your speed, your first derivative, is a very positive 60 miles per hour. But maybe 5 minutes ago, you were going 70. You're still moving forward at a fantastic pace, but you've taken your foot off the gas a little. That subtle but vital insight is what separates a novice from an expert.
All right, let's take this out of the textbook and put it where it belongs, in the boardroom. Theory is great, but it's useless if you can't apply it. So I want you to imagine you are the CEO of a company. It's the quarterly review, and you're about to present the results to your executive team. The scene is set. The Q3 numbers are in. The feeling in the room is good, celebratory even. You can feel the optimism in the air. All right, team, let's get started. As you can see, the top-line number from the sales report looks solid. We've posted 8% growth for the quarter. I want to start by congratulating every single one of you for that incredible hard work.
In mathematical terms, our velocity, our first derivative, is clearly positive. We are growing, and that is absolutely something we should all be proud of. However, I had our analytics team do a deeper dive, and I'm looking at the second derivative of our revenue function. And for the last 4 weeks of this past quarter, it has been negative.
This tells me our growth, while positive, is decelerating. We are losing momentum. We are heading towards a plateau. So, while we celebrate this 8% today, we must act on this insight now. I want a strategic plan on my desk in 2 weeks from marketing, from product, and from sales, outlining how we find our next growth curve before our competitors see us slow down and decide to pounce.
You see, that scenario shows the real predictive power of this analysis. But just like any powerful tool, there are common mistakes that can lead to some really wrong conclusions and, frankly, some disastrous decisions. So let's walk through them carefully so you can avoid these traps.
First, and I know we've hammered this point, but it is just that important, is confusing deceleration with decline. It's the most common error by far. Remember, your revenue can be growing by millions, but if it grew by even more last quarter, your second derivative is negative. Mistaking this for a crisis might cause you to panic. Second big mistake is ignoring the inflection points. That's that moment where the second derivative changes sign, where your growth shifts from accelerating to decelerating. Finding that point is absolutely critical for timing your big strategic moves. And finally, never ever forget that math is a tool, not a crystal ball. You have to apply business context. A deceleration might be a planned result of shifting to a more profitable product line. Without that context, the math by itself would send a completely misleading signal.
So, the most crucial point is this. Think of the second derivative as your company's strategic early warning system. It's not a big red stop sign telling you the business is failing. No, it's the yellow caution light on your dashboard, signaling that it's time to proactively find that next engine of growth before the current one runs out of steam. It's your mathematical tool for looking around the corner. And that brings us to the end of our lecture today. We've established that the first derivative is velocity, and the second is acceleration. So that leaves us with one final provocative question to think about for our next session. If the second derivative reveals the acceleration of growth, what story does the third derivative, which is sometimes called the jerk, tell us about a business? We'll explore that next time. Thank you.